West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
2 years ago, when billionaire Elon Musk bought what was once called Twitter, he vowed to keep it a non-biased platform. In fact, that was his mission statement. He posted it at the time. It must be politically neutral, which effectively means upsetting the far right and the far left equally. It was a message he repeated frequently in interviews after purchasing the platform.
The goal of New Twitter is to be as fair and even-handed as possible, not favoring any political ideology. It should not be a partisan politics.
But that quickly turned out to be a hollow sentiment. Instead, Musk used his immense influence on his own platform to tell his followers to vote Republican in the 2022 midterms. And he voiced his support for Ron DeSantis as president. There was one prominent Republican who Musk wasn't a fan of, Donald Trump. He said the former president was too old and that he should hang up his hat and sail into the sunset. And as you can imagine, Trump didn't take that advice very well.
You know, he said the other day, oh, I've never voted for a Republican. I said, I didn't know that. He told me he voted for me. So he's another artist.
Now, Trump escalated the feud when he claimed Musk came to the White House begging for his help on his projects, adding, I could have said, drop to your knees and beg. And he would have done it. He would also go on to savagely mock his notoriously glitch-filled campaign launch for Ron DeSantis on X. But after the campaigns of Musk's preferred candidate, DeSantis, and later Vivek Ramaswamy went down in flames, the billionaire planned a spring trip to Mar-a-Lago. In March, he met with Trump, who just so happened to be seeking a cash infusion to help his campaign. Afterwards, Musk was asked about the meeting and if he'd donate money to Trump or then candidate Joe Biden. And here's how he responded.
You said you're not going to donate to any candidate.
That's correct.
Why not?
I don't want to put a thumb on the scale monetarily. That is, significant.
You know where this is going, right? Well, by July, we learned that Musk was already donating a sizable amount to a political group working to elect Donald Trump. And the day after that was reported, he publicly announced that he was endorsing Trump following the attempted assassination on him in Butler, Pennsylvania. Last month, Musk was asked about the impact of his endorsement of Donald Trump, and he did not respond to requests for comment. Now, that brings us to this cringe-worthy scene yesterday, when Trump took to the podium again in Butler nearly 3 months later. Except this time he was joined by his friend Elon Musk, the same man who once proclaimed he would keep his social media platform politically neutral. And that Trump wasn't the candidate to lead this country.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA. Fight, fight, fight! President Trump must win to preserve the Constitution. He must win to preserve democracy in America. Vote, vote, vote. Fight, fight, fight. Vote, vote, vote.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that dark MAGA. I much prefer comedian Mike Drucker's interpretation, dork MAGA. Let's just take this in for a moment, and this image of Elon Musk jumping awkwardly on stage as Trump looks on. I mean, this will be the legacy of Elon Musk, the man once seen as a tech visionary, a real-life Tony Stark to some, who traded in his reputation and his self-professed principles to become nothing more than a reactionary Lex Luthor in a MAGA hat. We have an amazing panel to break all of this down for us. Angela Carasone, president of Media Matters, Tara Setmeyer, co-founder and CEO of the Seneca Project and former GOP communications director. It's good to have both of you with us. Angela, I'll start with you. I mean, this is an embarrassing spectacle for Elon Musk. Certainly last night, seeing him jumping up and down the way he was. He's given up any pretense of political neutrality as a person and certainly as a platform on X.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two things I note. One is that I think one of the clips he plays is probably one of the few times that Trump actually said something that was truthful, right? When he referred to Musk as a BS artist. Right. And that's the first thing that I would note, is that part of what sort of, and you saw the genesis in those clips too, is that much of the way that Musk talked about his role and X's role is the way that we heard Fox News talk about itself when it first came to being, right? That it was fair and balanced. Well, it wasn't designed to be fair and balanced. It was designed to be a counterbalance to what they consider to be the rest of the media. And that's exactly what he did with X, is that he sort of saw everything else as being far too liberal, sort of a tool for Democrats. And that's when he sort of talks about X being fair, what he really means is X being a counterbalance, a tool for the right wing. And you sort of see that playing out time and again, over and over again. So, yeah, I think it's embarrassing that he jumped. But the truth is, Musk actually jumps for joy for a lot of things. I mean, it doesn't get much height, but I'm okay with that. It's silly. It's goofy. I think the thing that's more disturbing is what he represents and stands for and who he is in our society, given his resources and his influence, and the fact that he is jumping for joy for what Trump stands for. And that's the part that I find really scary, is that, people might make fun of him a little bit, but ultimately there's not likely to be many meaningful consequences for what he's actually advocating for and fighting for. And that's the part that I find most disturbing.
That is the important part in this, Tara, that, I mean, Elon Musk is a man with tremendous power. We see that with the satellites that he operates, whether it's Starlink and the Ukraine war, his ability to be involved in our politics with the millions of dollars that he's pumping into it, his views on internet freedom, free speech, censorship, all of these things that he stakes a claim in and then tells people that he wants to be neutral about, but then behind the scenes works for or against.
Elon Musk is a very, I would just say he's acting out of, I think, trauma response. This is a guy that is not a well-adjusted adult. It's obvious. And you look at him standing next to Donald Trump and this cosplaying role that he's taking on as this kingmaker, bro, tech guy. It's almost sad to watch if it weren't for the fact that he's so wealthy and dangerous. The things that he pushes on Twitter and what he says is it's lunacy oftentimes, and it's only because he controls so much and the government contracts that he has are so important, particularly to our space program, that anybody tolerates what Elon Musk has to say at this point. I mean, he has over however many hundreds of millions of followers on Twitter and just pushes out these horrible, dangerous conspiracy theories. He goes on and last night he tweeted out, "Make America based again." And if anyone knows, that's alt-right code. That terminology. He does traffic in that dark MAGA world that we should all be scared to death about. You don't want these people in power. These are people who don't think that women should have equal rights. These are people who are like the incels in their mother's basement that, are out here in the masks and decide to go and march with tiki torches. These are the types of people who are excited by what Elon Musk has to say. And Donald Trump and MAGA are embracing him. It's transactional. The idea that Elon Musk is saying that we must vote for Donald Trump to preserve our democracy, it's that's like saying you have to vote for Mussolini to preserve Italian freedom. It's insanity. And between the two of them, what do they have? 17 kids by 6 different women? Yeah, they're the paragons of virtue.
Yeah, well, let me, again, Angela, we laugh about Musk's cartoonish antics here, but there is a danger in how he's using his voice. Let me get your reaction to something he said last night in Butler. Watch this.
Get everyone you know and everyone you don't know, drag them to register to vote. Make sure they actually do vote. If they don't, this will be the last election. That's my prediction.
So, on one hand, in the public space, he has kind of promoted the great replacement theory. He is now saying this is the end of our democracy if the Vice President Kamala Harris wins, which is really projection in the event that Donald Trump wins. That might really be our last election. But this is a guy who is spreading dangerous rhetoric and calling on, as we just played in that clip, spreading dangerous lies.
Yeah, I mean, I think, telling people to get out to vote when you're advocating for a side, there's nothing insidious about that. But when you peel back the layer just one notch and it gets to what you're noting about the other things that he's amplifying and engaging with, part of what he does day in and day out is sort of pluck things from the far-right fever swamps, the things that used to be on the fringes. And that is so tied into what Trump is doing in the larger Republican Party these days, which is building power on what used to be considered the fringes. And so when you start to organize power on what used to be considered the fringes, and you get out there, you tell people to get out to vote, and you organize those people, you bring in the types of activities that are likely to be violent and justify the means, the things that are really disruptive. Because those are the types of individuals that are relegated or had been relegated to the fringes for a reason. And you see that evidence day in and day out, as you noted, by the types of things that he's promoting. Let's not forget that 2 days before Trump got up there and talked about Springfield, and what was happening there, we know the false claims about Springfield, it was Elon Musk having a back and forth on X with Charlie Kirk that helped take that idea and further amplify it and saturate it to millions of people. And that's the kind of thing that's happening every day, and it's not by accident. So, when you peel back that layer, the way and who they're trying to organize and who they're speaking to, that's the part that's really scary, because they're really focusing in on the diehards and the people most likely to engage in the most destructive behavior, while simultaneously using the rubber glue and projecting, right? They're making it about democracy. Somehow they're the pro-democracy forces. And that, again, reinforces this idea that the ends justify the means. They are, turning the buzzsaw on that we're all sort of heading headfirst into right now.
Tara, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans were complaining and up in arms that tech bros or big tech companies and their leaders were the ones trying to help tip the scales for Democrats and ads on Facebook and Meta and all this. But not only has Musk's pro-Trump super PAC spent more than $30 million to help him since August, according to this new report from the Wall Street Journal, he has also given tens of millions of dollars to Republican causes for years, including groups with ties to ex-Trump aide Stephen Miller and supporters of Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign. I mean, it's always projection with everybody on the right, it seems.
It is, and J.D. Vance is a creature of Peter Thiel. I mean, they've become what they claim to despise, and they do it in the most insidious ways. And when you look at the way that they're approaching this, Elon Musk, I worry about Elon Musk using Twitter around election day or when election results are coming in and sowing that type of disinformation that causes people to not have faith in our elections. This is something that MAGA is working on in a lot of areas, in a lot of states. We're watching them do this. And then you have someone like Elon Musk that's out here that could potentially put out that type of misinformation. He did it with the hurricane response. I know we're going to talk about that later, but this is how faith in democracies and your free and fair elections and the free flow of information is tainted because he has such influence. So you have Elon Musk, who has daddy issues and mommy issues. His mother's a conspiracy theory kook also. You've got Trump, who's got daddy issues, and you've got J.D. Vance that has mommy issues. They need to have a group therapy session and work it all out and stop holding the rest of us hostage because they haven't worked out their childhood traumas.
It is Monday, the 7th of October of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And we will be seating you directly for our especially special, daily special, River City Hash Mondays. Yeah, well, it's Monday. Nothing to say about it except it's Monday. Oh my. Okay. Well, you know what we do, of course. The reason we make a hash is that in the restaurant biz, what you have left over from the weekend, you make a hash. All right. No one wants it, feed it to the staff. They love it. They do, honestly. Okay, so we had quite a weekend. Trump and the MAGA party continue to be out there to sabotage America because, if they do anything that could help an American citizen survive a cataclysm, it could make the Democratic Party look good because, the Dems are in essentially power right now. So everybody's bugged out for a 6-week vacation, voted down all funding for disaster relief, and they won't come back to town because they're out on the stump telling everybody and their crazy MAGA uncle that the Biden administration and Kamala Harris herself is handing out FEMA funds to illegal immigrants overseas. Think about that. They're illegal immigrants and they're overseas. I don't know. The MAGA mind works in very mysterious, racist ways. Is racism that mysterious? No, but I like to put it in there anyway. So I live in an area where people are actually, starting to echo this bullshit. Why are we spending billions on foreigners and foreign countries and not helping our own American citizens? Well, we are. In spite of the roadblocks that the MAGA insurrectionists, and might I actually be more correct in saying insurgents? That's right. An insurgency is when the electeds are involved. And that's what MAGA Mike and the rest of his crew are. They are insurgents. They have no motivation to help another fellow human being, an American citizen, because it might help the liberals in there. It just might simply make us look good. And if we look good, people are going to vote for us. Well, you know what? They're going to vote for us anyway, not only because we look good, but because we do good. So you get down on the ground, and everybody, I'd like you to make notes once again, because during the cataclysm, people's feelings of community and neighborliness seem to come to the fore. I mean, the positive side, our better angels, except for those whose worst angels come to the fore, and we know who they are. So we have Republican governors, Republican senators, Republican congresspeople, Republican state elected people, mayors, Republican dog catchers, saying that, yeah, FEMA was here before. No one could have prepared for what this storm wrought, because it's worse than Katrina. People blew off Katrina, no pun intended. This one they were actually trying to prepare for, in spite of the sabotage by the MAGA insurgents. Excuse my voice being so, whiny and ranty. But it's how it is on a Monday, when you've had to put up with this BS. And then this guy goes out on the stump and he's lying. It's just... And then you got Andrea Mitchell. Mrs. Greenspan is how we call her. Putting in her 2 bits. Yeah, well, MAGA tends to seep in everywhere, doesn't it? I don't know. I think it's more that she's upset that a presidential candidate, a major presidential candidate, is blowing her off. And instead, doing podcasts with, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million unique views. I don't know. I'd go for that, especially when that's the constituency you need to really make more than just inroads, but you need to solidify. Because as people who watched the interview on She's Your Daddy, a lot of kids, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say kids, 18 to 24-year-olds, you know what I mean, who apparently, I don't know, they're not as politically sophisticated maybe as we were back in the day, or maybe we were just truly a distinct minority among our peers. Could have been. Considering how many idiot boomers there are out there, especially the ones towards the end of the boomer period. What the hell? So, it was good that Kamala Harris was able to make an impression upon people who wanted to hear more, because all they hear is all this hate and they're the blame and I'm gonna get them. They were actually astounded by a reasonable conversation, a fulsome explanation of what will be done, how it will be funded, and why. So, I don't know. Trad media is upset. And well, they should be, because we warned them, didn't we? Warned them all the way back at the fairness doctrine issue. That could have been fought against a little bit more by the media. And who pushed that? Who pushed that fairness doctrine issue? Yeah, everybody says Reagan. Yeah, because he was the tool. Rupert Murdoch. Oh, I know that it didn't really happen until Clinton. But hey, those inroads were made in the mid-'80s. The guy played the long game. We all talked about it in my group when we would take these survival hikes in the Clark Range of Yosemite. 10-day, 110-mile loop. It was fun. Did it till I was, almost 50. And I got a little bit too, shall we say, troublesome on the old knees. The old operated on bone knees. From playing football. Kids, be careful. You think you're immortal. And you will be right up until the day you die. And in between, there's going to be a lot of pain. Be careful. Anyway, we used to sit around our little campfire in designated fire spots in the Clark Range of Yosemite. We didn't do it off trail. We didn't make fires off trail. Just being clear about this. Don't do that. Don't make fires off trail. Only in an established fire ring. Damn. Anyway, we would sit around and we would talk about, isn't it weird how all these old Soviet fighters are adopting the Soviet 50 and 70 year plan to, F up America, and we used to guffaw. We would also take a line from a Jack Nicholson movie and weave a kind of monologue with Jack Nicholson quotes from various movies. So you can tell where our minds were while we sat around the fire on survival hikes, 110-mile loops in the Clark Range of Yosemite. But it is curious how we seem to be experiencing at the end of a 50-year period what we are at this very moment. And we have Rupert Murdoch and all of that. Well, right down to buying up, well, let's be clear, conservative church radio stations and TV stations in rural America across the face of rural America. Bought all those up. Yep. They played the long game. The Soviet 50-year plan, except we're going to make it into a Reich. And they have, haven't they? Well, there's one way to stop them. We only have a few weeks left. We do. Alrighty. I could go on, but we did cure... We, in the royal we. Okay, just to be clear, but I like saying that. Anyway, it is a group effort ultimately to put all of this out here, for consumption by the world. Anyway, we have curated some interesting stories for you over the weekend, and why don't we give you a rundown on what they are? So we will. Yes, at the top. Just to be clear, Musk vowed to keep Twitter a non-biased platform, but he's done the opposite and has transformed the platform into a political tool to help Trump. And I know it's obvious, but we just need to be reminded. Then on the rest of the menu, concerns have been raised with the Los Angeles County Sheriff about a previously unknown deputy subgroup that uses a logo featuring Nazi-like imagery. And it's not the only one. The Fifth Court Circuit of Appeals in New Orleans will hear oral arguments today in a civil rights lawsuit alleging a South Louisiana parish engaged in racist land use policies to place polluting industries in majority black communities. And yeah, that's been happening for quite a while. But it's good that we're finally getting a lawsuit. We'll see how far it goes. And the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has declined to immediately decide issues related to mail-in ballots in the Commonwealth, with early voting already underway in the few weeks before the November 5th election. Well, things are in stasis. The complaints have been brought up by the usual suspects, and we know who they are. Election deniers. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Russian prosecutors asked for a 7-year sentence in the trial of a U.S. citizen accused of fighting as a mercenary in Ukraine against Russia. And actually, they said they're being lied on him because he's 70. Okay. And tens of thousands of Hungarians protested the state media propaganda factory and demanded an unbiased press. That's how you punch the Nazis. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. If you would go to our homepage at netrootsradio.com and scroll down to the bottom, well, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, and to the right of the page is the link to our Patreon page. If you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really, really, really does help. The cost to run this powerhouse of resistance, of course, always goes up. And though we support this endeavor by digging deep into our own pockets, we would truly be unable to do it without you. And thank you to those of you who have been sustaining us for all these many, 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 many years. And we always like to mention to folks out there that if you're able to afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso type coffee drink once a month, that is what people have been doing all these years, and it really does help. Coffee once a month towards Netroots Radio allows us to pay all of the costs. I mean, there's quite a bit Got the homepage, got the stream, got Spreaker where we put up our podcasts, and even the live streams. So your help always and is direly helpful. So thank you to those of you who have been generous, and a pre-thank you to those of you who are considering maybe being so generous. Alrighty, follow me on social media at Justice Putnam, and you'll have quick access to the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes that is posted 10 minutes before showtime, so you can have access and hopefully read the full articles by the actual reporters. Speaking of which, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Los Angeles Times by Carrie Blankinger. The Civilian Oversight Commission is raising concerns about a previously unknown deputy subgroup that oversight officials say uses a logo featuring Nazi-like imagery, according to a memo obtained by the Times. The newly reported group, which is not named in the memo, is based out of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Norwalk station, which had not previously been linked to any reported deputy gang or clique. Well, I got to tell you, Norwalk's in the San Gabriel Valley, and that has always been a hotbed of white citizen council bullshit, KKK bullshit, neo-Nazi bullshit, Bircher bullshit, you name it, that bullshit's been rampant for decades. When we were little kids, we had crosses burned down our lawn in the San Gabriel Valley for having the audacity. My parents had their colleagues from the university, the California State University there in Fullerton. It wasn't a university, but it became one real quick. We know it as CSU Fullerton. Deigned to have their colleagues, my mom and dad's colleagues from the university, at the house for a little soiree. Too much for some of the cracker neighbors. I'm just saying. Longtime commission member Sean Kennedy, who wrote the memo, described the group as currently active and said it has sometimes been at odds with another Norwalk subgroup that predates it and is identified by a Wile E. Coyote logo. Okay. Several department sources, who asked to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation. Yeah. Has anybody seen any Coplet movies? I don't know. Told the Times the newer subgroup dates to at least the 1990s. Could be from the 50s. One department source said the group has a shot caller who makes decisions, much like in a prison gang. Well, we've always said you can tell a gang by their colors. Jack Brooke at the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. A federal appellate court is set to hear oral arguments today in a civil rights lawsuit alleging a South Louisiana parish engaged in racist land use policies to place polluting industries in majority black communities. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans is reviewing a lawsuit filed by community groups claiming St. James Parish, quote, intentionally discriminated against black residents, end quote, by encouraging industrial facilities to be built in areas with predominantly black populations while explicitly sparing white residents from the risk of environmental harm. The groups, Inclusive Louisiana, Rise St. James, and Mount Triumph Baptist Church, seek a halt to future industrial development in the parish. The plaintiffs note that 20 of the 24 industrial facilities were in two sections of the parish with majority black populations when they filed the complaint in March of 2023. The parish is located along a heavily industrialized stretch of the Mississippi River between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, known as the Chemical Corridor, often referred to by environmental groups as Cancer Alley, because of the high levels of cancer-causing pollution emitted from the area. Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has declined to step in and immediately decide issues related to mail-in ballots in the Commonwealth, with early voting already underway in the few weeks before the November 5th election. The Commonwealth's highest court on Saturday night rejected a request by voting rights and left-leaning groups to stop counties from throwing out mail-in ballots that lack a handwritten date or have an incorrect date on the return envelope, citing earlier rulings pointing to the risk of confusing voters so close to the election. How nice. The court will neither impose nor countenance substantial alterations to existing laws and procedures during the pendency of the ongoing election, the unsigned order said. Chief Justice Deborah Todd dissented, saying voters, election officials, and courts needed clarity on the issue before Election Day. We ought to resolve this important constitutional question now, before ballots may be improperly rejected and voters disenfranchised, Todd wrote. But Justice Kevin P. Robeson, however, said in a concurring opinion that the groups waited more than a year after an earlier high court ruling to bring their challenge, and it was all too common practice of litigants who postpone seeking judicial relief on election-related matters until the election is underway that creates uncertainty. Many voters have not understood the legal requirement to sign and date their mail-in ballots, leaving tens of thousands of ballots without accurate dates since Pennsylvania dramatically expanded mail-in voting in a 2019 law. Well. That brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, A Critic's Dilemma. Dramatic presentations examining humanity through the lens of non- or not-quite-human characters are nothing new. In fact, the word robot, found in the title of the new animated The Wild Robot, comes from such an effort by Czech writer Josef Kopek, dating back to 1920. In this one, a transportation accident finds their synthetic protagonist, the digital human helper Rosum Unit 734, nicknamed Roz, and wonderful wonderfully voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, stranded on an island, of course populated by a variety of talkative creatures. True to its or her programming, Roz attempts offering the manufacturer's stock assistance to the incredulous creatures, and while doing so, accidentally destroys a goose nest, saving only one egg. As Fox, Pedro Pascal points out, when it hatches, the gosling will imprint on the first thing it sees. So, all of a sudden, Roz is a mom, and the gosling gets a name, bright bill, and a goal, being ready for the great migration with the other geese come the end of summer. From here, we get a compressed child-rearing narrative, replete with observations on the nature of love, peer pressure, and the difficulties of imparting hard truths, all with lots of sly commentary about their island world, which, not surprisingly, isn't different from the real one. That world comes calling in the closing act, where corporate evil is met with an act of selflessness, which is highlighted because of its non-human source. In addition to its story, the wild robot is gorgeously drawn and integrated with a wonderful soundtrack. It's a critic's dilemma because it's so damn good, succeeding where so many animated pictures fail at having legitimate appeal to both kids and grown-ups. More about this one on Oscar night. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Did you know that every time you move, you have to re-register to vote? If you're a young adult going through major life transitions, moving can be hectic, and many Americans, especially low-income individuals, forget or don't have the resources to register to vote. But that's where the Voters on the Move Registration Act comes into play.
This bill, introduced in 2023 by Senator Reverend Warnock and Congresswoman Nakima Williams, aims to help Americans register to vote by requiring federal housing agencies and residential mortgage providers to provide information about voter registration and new renters and homeowners.
The Voters on the Move Registration Act aims to create a uniform statement with information on voter registration and rights, which will be distributed amongst renters in public housing and federally backed multifamily residential units, as well as applicants for residential mortgages.
If implemented, the act would mandate the establishment of a comprehensive and interconnected system for sharing voter registration information among various states and jurisdictions. This system would facilitate the seamless transfer of voter registration data when individuals relocate to new locations.
This bill aims to make voter registration more accessible, especially for low-income Americans. By ensuring that you have this vital information when you move, it makes it easier for you to exercise your right to vote and make a difference in our democracy.
So spread the word about the Voters on the Move Registration Act and let your community know about this important legislation. Together, we can make sure that every voice is heard, no matter where you go.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Arthritis is common among veterans. Traumatic and overuse injuries during active duty are risk factors for developing arthritis. Fortunately, there are low-cost or no-cost strategies that can help veterans manage arthritis. Physical activity can reduce pain and improve function. It can also help improve mood and play a role in managing other chronic conditions, such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. You can do low-impact activities, such as walking, biking, swimming, and water aerobics, all good forms of exercise. Arthritis-specific classes can help you get started. Information on classes, exercise programs, and tools are available at cdc.gov/arthritis. These resources can help reduce pain and improve function. Learning self-management techniques can help all veterans become more active, improve their overall quality of life, and thrive.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a single father of 2 who works 3
part-time jobs and still can't put enough food on the table.
Or maybe a mother who cleans offices at night,
hoping to find meeting leftovers to take home to her hungry family.
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government buy-in for the people. As state deadlines for voter registrations draw near, new registrations across the United States are down compared to 2024, according to political data and advertising firm TargetSmart. But there are increases in certain demographics compared with 2020. TargetSmart used a combination of state data gathering and modeling and found that 2024 new voter registrations 8 weeks from the election were 15.7 million, down 42% from 27.3 million in 2020. The 2024 partisan lean model shows that 48.8% of those registering lean Democratic, 34.3% Republican, and 16.9% unaffiliated. In 2020, 46.7% lean Democratic, 37.3% Republican, and 16% unaffiliated. Among those new 15.7 million registered voters, there are increases in Black, Hispanic, and Asian American Pacific Islanders, and a decrease in new white voters. TargetSmart also found a slightly higher percentage of younger voters over 2020. There was also a slightly lower percentage of women, although the organization found a surge of registrations among Black and Hispanic women after Vice President Kamala Harris became the nominee. We've linked to TargetSmart's report at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org, where you'll also find nonpartisan resources where voters can register or check their registration. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1879. The man who came to be known as Joe Hill was born Joel Emanuel Haglund in Gavel, Switzerland. Hill traveled the United States organizing for the grassroots labor organization, the Industrial Workers of the World. He is most remembered for the songs he wrote about working people he met in his travels. Many of the songs were set to the music of popular hymns and tunes of the day. Hill was executed by firing squad in Utah in 1915 for what many believe were trumped-up charges. He was accused of murder and convicted despite a lack of evidence. His real crime was labor organizing. His trial became a national story. On Hill's birthday, let us take a moment to remember some of the lyrics of 2 of his most famous songs. The first was Rebel Girl, which he wrote for fellow Wobbly organizer Elizabeth Gurley Flynn.
Though her hands may be hardened from labor, and her dress may not be very fine, but a heart in her bosom is beating that is true to her class and her kind.
Another famous song was the iconic There Is Power in a Union, where he writes,
"Oh, if you like sluggers to beat in your head, don't organize, all union despise. If you want nothing before you are dead, shake hands with your boss and look wise."
After his execution, Joe Hill's ashes were sent to every state across the country, every state except Utah. And so today, we wish you a happy birthday, Joe Hill, wherever you are. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 52 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the low 90s, plentiful sunshine throughout the day. Winds will be light and variable, with clear skies overnight with lows in the low 50s, winds remaining light and variable. Mostly sunny tomorrow with highs only in the mid-80s, with winds light and variable. Ragweed pollen is rated high here in Rogue River. The air quality index is in the good range at 25 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is moderate at level 4. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.04 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 83%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 64 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 61 with rain. Rome is 74 degrees and sunny with an extreme advisory for heavy rain. Kabul is 56 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 65 degrees and clear. Tokyo is 76 and cloudy. Auckland in New Zealand is 55 and fair. San Francisco, California is 72 degrees and partly cloudy with an extreme heat advisory, mostly because it's going to be bumping around 100 or more down the peninsula and the surrounding areas. Chicago, Illinois is 59 degrees and sunny, and New York is 68 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Russian prosecutors asked for a 7-year sentence in the trial of a U.S. citizen accused of fighting as a mercenary in Ukraine against Russia, Russian news agencies reported on Saturday. Prosecutors asked the court to take into account 72-year-old Stephen Hubbard's age and said he has admitted guilt. They asked that Hubbard serve the sentence in a maximum security penal colony. Oh, that's one way to take in his age into account. In Russia, participating in mercenary activities is a criminal offense, punishable by imprisonment for a term of 7 to 15 years, so he got off easy. Prosecutors accuse Hubbard of signing a contract with the Ukrainian military after Russia sent troops into Ukraine on February of 2022, for which he allegedly was to receive at least $1,000. He reportedly underwent training, received a personal firearm and fought in the Ukrainian military as a mercenary until April of 2022 when he was detained by the Russian military. The U.S. Embassy in Moscow told the Associated Press it was aware of the reports of the arrest of an American citizen, but said it could not comment any further due to privacy restrictions. Russian courts convict more than 99% of defendants, and prosecutors can appeal sentences that they regard as too lenient. Arrests of Americans have become increasingly common in Russia in recent years. Concern has risen that Russia could be targeting U.S. nationals for arrest to later use as bargaining chips in talks to bring back Russians convicted of crimes in the U.S. and Europe. The U.S. and Russia in August completed their largest prisoner swap in post-Soviet history, a deal involving 24 people. Many months of negotiations and concessions from other European countries who released Russians in their custody as part of the exchange. Several U.S. citizens remain behind bars in Russia following the swap. Justin Spike at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Thousands of protesters gathered outside the headquarters of Hungary's Public Media Corporation on Saturday to demonstrate against what they say is an entrenched propaganda network operated by the nationalist government at taxpayer expense. The protest was organized by Hungary's most prominent opposition figure, Péter Magyar, and his upstart Tisza party, which has emerged in recent months as the most serious political challenge for Prime Minister Viktor Orban since he took power nearly 15 years ago. Magyar, whose party received nearly 30% of the vote in European Union elections this summer and is polling within a few points of the governing Fidesz party, has been outspoken about what he sees as the damage Orban's propaganda factory has done to Hungary's democracy. What is happening here in Hungary in 2024 and calling itself public service media is a global scandal, Magyar told the crowd in Budapest on Saturday. Enough of the nastiness, enough of the lies, enough of the propaganda. Our patience has run out. The time for confrontation has come. Sound familiar? Both Hungarian and international observers have long warned that press freedom in the Central European country is under threat, and that Orban's party has used media buyouts by government-connected business tycoons to build a pro-government media empire. Sound familiar? Media watchdog Reporters Without Borders estimates that such buyouts have given Orban's Orban's party control of some 80% of Hungary's media market resources. In 2021, the group put Orban on its list of media predators, the first EU leader to earn that distinction. On Saturday, Balázs Tompe, A protester that traveled several hours to attend the demonstration called the state media headquarters a factory of lies. The propaganda goes out at such a level and is so unbalanced that it's blood boiling, and I think we need to raise our voices, he said. It's nonsense that only government propaganda comes out in the media that is financed by us, the taxpayers. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.